There's 3 seats back here. There's 3 seats right here.
It is.
I'm going to see if he's got my phone. I said no. I just yeah.
That's a big one. Congratulations. It's now 6 o'clock. Chair would like to call this December 6, 2022 regular call board meeting to order. Ms. Brown, you've been notified. And I do confirm quorum. Chair would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for personnel. Just personnel.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion, we enter executive session for personnel matters only.
Motion made by Ms. Harrison, second by Mr. Davis. Second by Mr. Davis. All in favor, show by the raising on the right hand. That would be 7-0. We're gonna go into executive session. It shouldn't take long. We won't be in there no longer than 6:30, if that long. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay.
She's got four. Strap you got when you're a child, you have to have it so many times before you take it off screen.
Three months with.
Yeah. I had to get mine to Tunisia, he's about 2 years old. But every other Saturday, about in the mess. Now turn it off again.
Time to share with entertain a motion to exit executive session, no action taken.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
make a motion, we exit executive session, no actions taken.
Motion made by Ms. Harrison, second by Ms. Green. All in favor of exiting executive session, no action taken, show by the raising of the right hand. That would be 7. I just wanted to, at this time, welcome everyone to our December 6th, 2022 regular board meeting. We thank you for your support. You know, this district has moved from extraordinary, ordinary to extraordinary. And I tell you, you know, you just wouldn't believe we were at a conference this weekend, And Fairfield is one of the talk of the state. You know, we're doing something everybody want to know. You know, they want to know about our new teacher village. They want to know about what we're doing and this, that, and you know, everybody's looking in Fairfield. So this time, I just want to welcome you. We're going to have our pledge of allegiance at the moment south by our secretary, Mr. C. Just please stand. Pledge of allegiance. Please remain standing for the moment south. You may be seated. And motion, who good? Kenya?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
The motion. Motion made by Ms. Harrison, approve the agenda, second by Dr. Harrison. All in favor, show by raising of the right hand. That would be 7-0. Do we have any public comment? Mr. Secretary? No. Thank you. This time, we're gonna call Dr. Avery for presentation recognition.
Good evening, Chairman Miller, members of the board, Superintendent Green, along with our guests this evening. I am excited to recognize the academic achievements of our scholars tonight from Fairfield Elementary, Giger Elementary, Kelly Miller, and McCory Liston School of Technology. These students scored the highest achievement level in 2 or more areas on the SC Ready or in the SC Pass. Tonight, we're going to start first with Fairfield Elementary. If Dr. Mark can come forward, and if Dr. Grady, you can join her. And parents and students, we're going to call each student's name. You'll get an opportunity to take a picture along with our digital communication specialist will also take a picture, and then we'll do one group picture. Fairfield Elementary, starting with Julian Barbosa. He earned exemplary in ELA and math.
Both time on both sides.
And Julian, if you could stand to the side. Jeremiah Beaver. Woo!
Oh, God.
It's my brother, y'all.
Xavier Belton earned exemplary ELA and math. Jordan Bulware earned exemplary and exceeds in 3 areas: ELA, math, and science. Kaylin Copeland earned exemplary and exceeds in math and science.
Both sides.
Quentin Fishburne earned exemplary in ELA and math. Davon Jefferson earned exemplary and exceeds in ELA, math, and science. Brooklyn Jeter earned exemplary in ELA and math. Asher O'Brien earned exemplary in ELA, math, and science. Amari Ruff also earned exemplary and exceeds in 3 areas: ELA, math, and science. Nasia Sanders earned exemplary and exceeds in math and science. Samaria Smith earned exemplary in all 3 areas in ELA, math, and science. Jamaria Walker earned exemplary ELA, math, and science. Jaharia Williams earned exemplary in ELA and math. And this concludes Fairfield Elementary. You can now do the group.
No, Robert, no.
Eager Elementary, Dr. Roberta Hayes, principal. The Adrian Cole earned exemplary and exceeds in all 3 areas: ELA, math, and science. Derek Green earned exemplary in all 3 areas: exemplar, ELA, math, and science.
So, birthday.
Laquan Hayes earned exemplary ELA and math. Avery Robinson earned exemplary in ELA and math. Hannah Thomas earned exemplary ELA and math.
Birthday as well. All right.
Joshua Winchester earned exemplary in ELA and math. Nathaniel Winchester earned exemplary in ELA, math, and science. Let's give these students a round of applause.
Give another round of applause.
Ellen Miller Elementary, Ms. Woodard, and Dr. Fields. Destiny Brewster earned exemplary in ELA and science. Wyatt Chappelle earned exemplary in ELA and science. Lamarcus Davis earned exemplary in ELA and science. Ryan Henrich earned exemplary in ELA and math. Alasia Johnson earning exemplary in ELA and math. Lydia Nesbitt earned exemplary in ELA and science. Jethro Okiro earned exemplary in ELA and math.
Good job, Doc.
Yuri Pullen earned exemplary in ELA and science.
Good job.
All right, let's give Kelly Miller Scholar a round of applause.
No round of applause.
For Corliss School of Technology, Dr. Shonda Bell, principal. Grant Breeden earned exemplary in all three areas, ELA, math, and science. Zayden Gaston earned exemplary in ELA and math. Atticus Johnson earned exemplary in ELA and math. Maya Morgan earned exemplary ELA in math. Mason Nellums earned exemplary in all three areas, ELA, math, and science. Let's give the Macquarie Liston students a round of applause.
Great job. So, did someone come in as we start?
Yes.
Who came in? Come on front, come on front.
Give me your jacket.
Mr. Wyatt.
Yeah, we can tell.
Give me this jacket. Yeah.
He's coming.
All right, Chappelle. All right. Thank you all. This time we're going to listen for our order report, Mr. Robinson as well.
I think when Mr. Frick was board chair one time, everybody thought you might want to get out like you can before I came up. So it's always a great time to be able to come and present the results of your audit again this year. We're looking at 2022. You have three things in front of you tonight, as always, that we have been providing. You got your audit report that is now in a gray book, not a maroon book, so it's easy to pick the most recent one of those out. You got a 3-page letter and you have a one-page summary that's got nice little yellow highlight. So I'm going to go through the letter first, and then we're going to go off that 1-page summary, so we don't have to flip around and flip pages. So just to give you an idea, what this letter is there's certain things within our profession that we're required to communicate to you as a board so that you can do your fiscal responsibility and fulfill your fiscal duties as a board member when things like the budget come before you and things like bonding and capital outlay, requests from, finance, from superintendent, that y'all want to do in the district. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit on a couple of those highlights in this letter, and then we're gonna talk about the numbers and kind of how those, laid out for the last fiscal year for the district. So if we're looking at the letter, the first thing I want to point out is the very first paragraph at the bottom. It talks about significant accounting policies. So last year I came up and I said, hey, the district just adopted GASB 84. We changed how you report your student activity funds. So there was were the funds that were collected at the school level, student fees, technology fees, pay club, those kind of things. They got reclassified into a different reporting methodology last year. And I told you that leases were coming. GASB 87 was effective this year. What that did is we looked at the various aspects of the district where there were leases that have been implemented. So where you have the right to use an asset for more than 12 months. So if it's 12 months, you pay your 12 months, you're good. It didn't fall under that. And as a part of looking at that, the district, if you want to say the district implemented that, you didn't have any leases to report. So you didn't have any long-term right to use assets that were required to be reported. And that's what that note says, that you didn't have any new, there were no additional selections of accounting policies and no changes in significant accounting policies. And the reason that I point that out to you as a board tonight, next year I'm going to come back to you and we're going to talk about GASB 96, which does the exact same thing, but with software subscription. So if the district is using a certain particular software, if you have an agreement that's 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we'll look at that and figure out the values and whether it needs to be reported. And what the standards boards are trying to get at here is to really look at, when you look at the government-wide financial statements, which I'll explain in just a minute, they want to really capture not only the assets you bought, but the assets that you have the exclusive right to use. So just because you bought it or you didn't, they don't think that that should disqualify or qualify you for reporting that as one of your assets. So if we had to have reported it this year, or if we report it next year, you'll see the assets on the books. You'll see a liability that offsets it. Those will be handled appropriately. But it was handled appropriately with 87 this year. You didn't have any leases to report. At the top of page 2, you'll see your significant accounting estimates. The district, as I've reported in the past, has 4 significant accounting estimates that we report on each year. The first one is your allowance for doubtful accounts. So we're looking at taxes that have been billed but have not been collected either during the fiscal year or within 60 days after that. So there's a balance that's sitting out there. And if you look at note 1, you can see the breakdown of what that balance is by your general fund and debt service funds. But we look at historical collections, what the county anticipates, what finance is telling us as auditors that they feel is collectible of that value. There's an allowance for that. So you'll see an allowance reported there. Next is the estimated useful lives and depreciation expense on capital assets. So what we're doing here is the district goes and buys a car. Well, we're making sure that that vehicle doesn't get put on for 40 years. Because if you found a car that lasts 40 years that you bought in the past 10 years, good luck. You need to hold on to it. But we're making sure that those asset lives are appropriate, because that then in turn is how long it's taking that expense of that vehicle or that server or whatever you put into place, like a building, a roof. That's how you expense that asset out of the government. We're opining, we're actually issuing an opinion that those numbers are materially correct. So we look at those useful lives and we look at the values. The next 2 are those lovely net pension liability and net OPEB liabilities. So if you look at the government-wide financial statements, you're going to see 2 numbers, somewhere between $47 and $52 million. They're in your non-current section. It's going to look like it's something that you might have to pay, like your debt. It is not. Those are it's the district share of the unfunded portion. So there's underfunding for the retirement system and for post-employment benefits for health. That's just the district share. That was a new GASB that got issued a couple of years ago. The district is paying exactly what FEMA has set out as the set standard retirement and contribution rates. You met all those. These have to do with actuarial evaluations, and I do not, I don't even pretend to be an actuary. But just to give you an idea of what we do from an audit perspective on those, we're looking at when your teachers are starting, when you're bringing new teachers on as new hires, when your teachers are retiring, or teachers are being terminated. We're making sure they're coming into the system at the right time and coming out. And as well, we're making sure that the contributions in and the salaries reported are accurate to make sure you're not paying into the system for a teacher that's no longer with you. You're paying before a teacher starts to make sure that the census data that actuaries are using is accurate, valid, and true, so that when they do report these figures, that you are actually reporting your fair share. The next section down that I want to talk about is the uncorrected and corrected misstatements. So the first paragraph talks about if we find anything that does need to be corrected, whether management has actually corrected those items. So anything that we did find during our audit that management, we proposed to management to correct or to make an adjustment for, management has done that. Then the next paragraph talks about of those items that we have corrected and that management has corrected that we proposed, none of them were material. So if I had a material misstatement that management corrected, I would bring it to you as the board so you could see, hey, we had to make a material adjustment with revenue or with receivables or whatever that audit area may be. But we had none of those. So not only, we'll talk about it in a minute, but not only are you getting a clean audit opinion, but we had no material adjustments we had to make in order to have that clean audit opinion. We had no disagreements with management or in anything that was wasn't resolved to our satisfaction over financial accounting, reporting, and auditing. In the top of page 3, there's a slight change here if you look at this letter in the past. So one of the things that we do as a part of our audit at the very end is we ask that Dr. Green and Mr. Robinson sign a letter. It's about 8 or 9 pages long, and it basically confirms to us through them some of the fundamental concepts and principles that our audit's based on. They've told us everything that we've asked. They've been honest and truthful. If the state's come in and done an audit, they've provided us with that information. Various other things. Our standard setting boards this year said that we need to give you that letter. Instead of giving you that 10-page letter, we've said and talked to management that if you wanted to see that letter, it's readily open and available for you to ask if you did want to see that. I'll just tell you, it's a very boilerplate letter. And like I said, it just hits some of those key highlights. You've reported on that like you're supposed to. You have. Basically, you've told us everything you're supposed to tell us, and you haven't told us anything that you didn't want us to know. The last paragraph there, I want to just quickly and briefly kind of explain and talk to you because it's something that's a little bit different than y'all seen in the past. So you see non-compliance with laws, regulations, violations of contract provisions, and grant agreements. And so one of the things that we do that a lot of people don't necessarily realize that we do unless we have to talk about it is test your bus drivers. And what we're doing is we're testing to make sure that you are in compliance with federal law. You can see it's 49 CFR 382.385 is the actual code section. But what we are doing there is we're making sure that you're testing the correct percentage for alcohol and for substance abuse. So you're required to test 50% of your drivers for substance and 10% for alcohol on a random basis. All your new bus drivers, your new hires get tested, but all of your pool gets tested at a 10 and 50%. That went up for this year. It was 20 and 10. And this is the only thing that we actually test, just as a quirky note. It's the only thing we test on a calendar year. So your fiscal year ends June 30th. This is tested on a calendar year, 1/1 to 12/30. One of the other things that we test as a part of this, just to make you aware, we also make sure that your transportation department is pulling DMV records. So not only are we making sure that you're testing for alcohol and substance, and if you have an accident, whether there's a post-accident test done and follow-ups to that, but we're also making sure that your bus drivers don't have some crazy wreck on their regular driving record, so that you don't have a bus driver driving with a quote-unquote clean CDL record, but they're almost about to lose all their points on their DMV record, right, on their regular driver's license. So we look at all that. When we looked at all of those different things, the only area that we found an issue was with the controlled substance testing. So instead of testing 50%, the district tested 41%. And the reason was, when that last quarter got pulled and sent to go test, the testing center was actually closed because of COVID. And it was too late into December when it was pulled, because it's almost right on a quarter. So when I called Mr. Robinson, we started discussing it, and I said, this looks eerily close to just one quarter. And that's what we found out after talking with Mr. Miller and digging into what happened. They were closed. There wasn't enough time post-closure and then reopening to have that quarter of drivers tested. He has a plan in place to fix that. This is not a financial statement finding. You will not see it anywhere in the audit report, any of the findings in the back. We did not consider this a material weakness based off of the facts and circumstances that took place. But when we find something like this, we are required to let you know as a board. You'll see it here. There's also a letter that's gone to Mr. Robinson and Dr. Green, explaining the same things I've explained to you tonight to them, as well as they're providing us their response on how they plan to correct that, which I also shared with you. So pretty boilerplate letter, pretty standard year over year. Does anybody have any questions on the letter before we do move into some of the more, the numbers and the actual meat and potatoes and all that? If you do have any questions as we're going through this, please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So we're going to kind of go in a clockwise motion here for y'all tonight. So top left corner, audit summary. So you see your financial statement of opinion is an unmodified opinion. So that's the highest and best opinion we can give, which is always great to be able to come and tell you that you're receiving that. Your report on internal controls. So we issue 3 reports. 2 reports we issue actual opinions. 1 report it is a non-opinion containing report. But if we were to find something, we would report it as a significant deficiency, material weakness. That's what this middle internal control report is. So what we do as a part of your audit, as a part of our substantiation of your financial records, is we look at your internal controls. So we're looking at things like cash receipts, cash disbursements, AP, payroll, your financial close. We're looking at all those different controls over the processes. And throughout our testing, we come to a determination on whether those are effectively designed and implemented. And we found that they were designed and implemented and contained no findings or no deficiencies. So that's a good thing to note there. Your major program opinion. So the OMB gives us a list of what they call direct and material compliance requirements. So there's about 13 or 14 compliance requirements that can be chosen. They choose the top 6, and then we from there choose the ones that are applicable to your district. So this year we did Title I and that lovely ESSER funding that y'all probably keep hearing about, and they're gonna keep hearing about until you use it all up, and then you'll probably hear about some more after that. So just to give you an idea, this year, our Title I, your Title I was $1,791,901. That was a little over 18.5% of your total federal expenditures. And then you spent $4,388,932 of ESSER funding. That was 45% of your federal funding. So we tested about 64% of that, and we were able to provide you with an unmodified, a clean opinion. So we're looking at not only the compliance side with that, but also the internal controls over this. So making sure that you have sound internal controls over the various compliance areas related to Title I and to ESSER. So just quickly recap that: 2 unmodified opinions, clean, highest and best we can give, 2 sets of no findings. That's exactly where you want to be as a district from a financial audit perspective. Top right-hand corner, we're looking at the government-wide financial summary. I'm not going to go into these numbers, but basically what this does is it takes your current year activity summary, that right there through the middle, which are your major programs, which is really the meat and potatoes and really where the district resides. And it builds in those things like capital assets and depreciation, your long-term debt, that NPL and OPEB number I was just talking to you about. So if you want to think about it in business terms, it takes you from, let's call it a cash basis, to a full accrual. So we're looking at 60 to 90 day outlook really in your funds. But when you get to the government wide, we're looking at anything and everything. So looking right there to current year activity summary now, through that middle section. Your first fund is your general fund. I'm going to hit on that in a little more detail, so I'm going to let it be for a second. Then you have your 3 special revenue fund classifications. So you have your special revenue fund, special projects. That's going to be your Title I, your IDEA, all that ESSER funding. Any local, state, or federally restricted funding that you're required to spend on certain cost objectives. You can see that it does have a fund balance, however, and that fund balance is almost 100, if not all, attributable to those people activity funds I was mentioning just a little bit earlier. So the student activity funds, you have the money that you're holding that the students have paid in to support the different things that they're doing at the school levels. You have $187,000 at the end of the year. Then you have the EIA fund. That's the EIA Act of 1984. That was the penny sales tax deal. $2.5 million came in. You either spend this now, you either spend this in a year, or if there's a carryover provision, they'll allow you to carry it 1 additional year. Just a quick note on that. I mean, you can see $2.5 million in, 1.5 spent, 981,000 was transferred out. That was going to be your EIA salary and fringe. It comes through that funding and then gets transferred over into the general fund. That's 2 of the 4 pots. If you've probably heard at school boards associations or Mr. Robinson talking about the change in the funding model from the state level. That's 2 of the 4 pots that are being consolidated, and they're going to change with the whole new funding formula. The next one you have is food service. You can see that food service basically broke even. It lost about $8,700 this year. The next 2 are your debt service and capital projects. So your debt service started at 2.5 million. You brought in 3.4 million in tax revenue, payments out of almost 1.3 million in principal interest and other objects, which is bond costs and things of that nature. And then you had a $2.2 million transfer out. And if you see, that was largely attributable to the transfer to capital projects. Capital projects this year started right at just a little bit under 4.4 million at 4.387. You spent 1.8, almost $1.9 million, and then you had that 2.2, almost $2.3 million transfer in, giving you an ending fund balance just a little under $4.8 million. And that will be able to be used, obviously, in the future for debt-free spending on capital improvements, capital assets, things of that nature. Now, if we look at the general fund, total revenues this year were $40,575,947. So compared to last year, that was a $729,000, almost $730,000 increase over the prior year. But it was a little over $1 million more than you had budgeted. If you look at your total expenditures this year of just a little bit over 40 million, 91,000, 356, that was $1.7 million less than you spent in the prior year, but it was also $3.3 million less than you had budgeted. So that gives you a net change from just your revenues and expenditures and fund balance of about $485,000. You see you had a little bit of premiums on bonds there. That was from the TAN that you did issue last year. Transfers in at 1.2 million. That's predominantly your indirect costs coming from ESSER Title I, those types of funds where you're allowed to cover part of the general overhead costs of the district with those federal dollars, as well as that $900,000 transfer from EIA. So what does the year look like as a whole? So for the year ended June 30th, 2022, the general funds fund balance went from $12,839,607 to $14,439,577. And to put that kind of in perspective, that's 36% of the current year expenditures, 33% of the current year budget, 22s. And then it's 33.2% of your FY 23, so your 22-23, the year you're in now, budget of $43,379,790. So all in all, you're able to put money into fund balance. You're able to continue to maintain your budgetary percentage where your budget was at, right there, that 33.2% fund balance to your budget. It's always a good thing to be able to put money in the fund balance to be able to keep your bond ratings. Right now, that's a big push for bonding agencies. They want to see you maintaining your fund balance percentage and also growing that number, which really puts you in a good spot going forward. I know a lot of districts I've talked to this year and over the past 2 or 3 years, nobody knew what COVID was going to do. Was it going to impact your tax revenues? Were people not going to be able to pay their taxes? We did see at one point an uptick in delinquent taxes. But as you can tell here, your increase year over year was $729,000, almost $730,000. So your revenues continue to be strong. And then if you look at your budget, your local revenue budget was $773,000, almost $774,000 more than you had budgeted, and that is all in local tax revenue. So you actually collected more local tax revenue than you were actually budgeting and forecasting to do. So it shows that Fairfield County is still strong. It shows that tax collections are still strong, and it puts you in a great position, not only if something were to happen in the future, but to be able to do any kind of capital projects or things of that nature that the district may wish to do in the near future. So, like I said, all in all, a good year. I always like to thank Mr. Robinson and his team. It was a very, very easy year for us. I didn't realize y'all run a modified schedules. We just so happened to come the week that y'all weren't here. The students weren't in, and so they were outstanding in getting us what we needed, and to make it a smooth and easy all of this season. So I just want to tell them thanks publicly for all that they've done, and just see if y'all have any questions.
Well, thank you. One of the things that I guess question came up. You tell me the difference. Talked with one of the board members down in another district, and everything was there. They only had about $4 million in their general fund, and I was telling them where our general fund was. He said, "You don't supposed to have that much money." And I was trying to explain to him that, but I was, that's like a cushion, so to speak. Could you talk on that a little bit?
So I'll tell you this, and I don't know which district it is, and
that's
we
why
look at it from from an audit perspective, from an advisory perspective, I'm gonna tell you, I wanna see you at 16 to 18% minimum, right? 2 to 3 months. The state Act 23 that came out in 2017, I think, 2017, 2019, somewhere around there. Act 23 is gonna tell you have to have 8.33%. That's 1 month. In my opinion, 1 month is not enough funding in your general fund to get short-term funding in place if something happened and your tax base either significantly declined or you had some major catastrophic event that required an extraordinary amount of your resources. We always like to say 2 to 3 months at a minimum. The national average on fund balance right now is 20%. You're obviously well above that, but that's a district by district choice, right? I mean, you want to add the fund balance? Yes, in the past, you'll have transferred money to capital projects. That is kind of a paper entry, if you will, to monitor how much is in fund balance. But at the same time, your district may have plans for that money. If we go back a year or two, y'all were actually holding money back out of your fund balance with a planned usage for that for teachers to make sure that you could have the right class sizes and the right teacher pay and put yourselves where you wanted to. I look back at 2021. So in 2021, I'm going to find this number real fast for y'all. In 2021, the state actually funded part of a teacher salary increase. So in 2021, you got $187,000. Well, you had to keep paying that, right? But you didn't get that funded in 22. So, you know, there's things like that. There's a push to raise, you know, base teacher salaries up each and every year. I mean, the $4,000 raise has been talked about this year and this year's budget. On top of, let's also remember, you now have a new EFA. And the whole EFA formula is changing. There is no such thing as base student cost anymore. And as you want to add a whole other layer on top of that, you have a budget right now that's Superintendent Spearman's that's been proposed. And in January, you can have Superintendent-elect Weaver come in who can completely change that one. So there's a lot of unknown in school finance as far as what the state's going to look like, what funding is going to look like going forward. So it's not, I guess I say all that to say, it's not a, oh, we have $4 million. You have, 14, because you may have plans for your district that are different than theirs. They may have different funding sources. The other thing to also keep in mind with all of this, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, is what do you have in ESSER? So ESSER is not like a Title I, it's not like an IDEA. That's a continued funding stream. You have a lot of salaries and benefits in Title I, but if Title I was gone tomorrow, that's a decision to make, right? So if you have a lot of salaries and benefits in ESSER, which I have to go back and look at, or you have done things in ESSER that you want to continue to do, when ESSER's gone, ESSER's gone. And that's what we've seen a lot of districts with a very, very large general fund increase this year. Because they've got $4, $5, $6, $8, $10 million in ESSER. But it's all fleeting, right? At some point, there's going to be the decision of what do we do there? You have the fund balance, that if you have position there, if there's things you're doing there, you can supplement and fund that for your general fund. So there's not really a, oh, it's right or oh, it's wrong to have this or that. It's really what you as a district and as a board feel is comfortable and feel is in the best interest and best in line with where you see yourselves, not now or a year or 2 years, but 5 or 10 years.
So I think
So thank you, Ms. Miller. So let me just add a little response to that as well. And so, you know, the fact that we have had a very aggressive bonus structure here for the last several years, where classified staff members to get 3,000 and certified 5,000. A healthy fund balance positions us to try and maintain such a bonus structure, particularly in light of the fact that we know we potentially could continue to experience some declines in revenue, in addition to knowing that we were going to experience an elimination of these ESSA funds ultimately. And so as we think about how we maintain some of these priorities, having that kind of reserve puts you in a position where you can maintain those priorities as you accommodate changes in revenue. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our plans going forward, but I would absolutely say having a healthier fund balance positions us to be able to do some very aggressive things that we have been doing relative to compensation over the last several years. I often say when you look at what we've done with bonuses, now you look across the state, virtually everybody's doing something similar like that. Okay, not necessarily to the level that we are at Fairfield, but people have been following our lead to a large extent. And so, but we don't want it to be a temporary thing. I mean, we want it to be something that we do consistently. And so having a healthy fund balance puts us in a better position.
And just to echo that, I have heard other districts that I audit mention Fairfield when they talk about their compensation and things. And what you are trying to do here for teacher recruitment, teacher retention, what you're doing for your teachers to make sure that they have appropriate class sizes and things of that nature, to make sure that it's not only the best for the students, obviously that's the number one key priority, but close behind that, obviously, are your teachers and your staff to make sure that they feel well taken care of as well. And like I heard you said, this fund balance puts you in a position to be able to continue to do that while enduring any economic changes that may or may not come, depending on what you hear in the news on what day is coming. So.
And just, we may have forgotten, but not that long ago, when Dominion acquired the nuclear facility, they made some adjustments in terms of how they were classifying some properties and other things. We saw a pretty consistent reduction in revenue, and because we had a healthy fund balance, we could maintain our standard for compensation. We can maintain our current class sizes without having to have significant cuts as a function of that reduction in revenue. And so you remember we were going into the fund balance for several years in a row to try and supplement that reduction in revenue, but you can only do that if you have something to go to, all right? And so we were going into fund balance for several years to maintain that. And now we're building the fund balance back up, but you never know when these reductions may come, okay? So in addition to positioning yourself with some of the priorities that you want to continue with, you have to be in a position where you can accommodate some reductions also. So we've seen those things.
I had a district in the upper part of the state who in one day lost $1.2 billion in tax revenue because one industry got bought by another. And so, and if you look at last year, you got 21's numbers there in front of you on that sheet. You used $1.1 million of fund balance last year. So you really replenished the 1.1 that you used and put about 400,000 in. So you're going to see those ebbs and flows, but you have the fund balance there and that capacity to do that.
Thanks for explaining it to us.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
If you can read it and get through it without falling asleep, and you have questions, I highly doubt, I can hardly get through the pensions and footnotes, out, starting to those. If you do have questions, as always, I'm more than willing and eager to help answer them as best I can. If I can't answer them, I'll obviously get Mr. Rollins involved to help me answer those. We just appreciate being able to come down here and do the work for another year. It's always a pleasure to come down and see everybody, to come work alongside Mr. Robinson. Put these financial statements together for you as a district, and to help y'all make sure that you are in the best financial position you can be.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Move to our board member minutes, November 15th.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the superintendent to approve the minutes from the November 15 regular call board meeting.
Motion made by Ms. Harrison, second by Dr. Harris to accept November 15th, regular call board meeting minutes. All in favor, show by the raise of the right hand. It's been accepted 7-0. At this time, we're gonna have our superintendent report.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, members of the board. First of all, it gives me great pleasure to recognize an outstanding orchestra student by the name of Tyree Timbers. Tyree, Reverend Jackson might know that fellow. Was selected to represent Fairfield Central High School in the Midlands Region 3 Orchestra. It's important to note that Tyree is only the second student to represent Fairfield County School District in this regional orchestra. And so this is a regional orchestra that includes, I think, the counties of Fairfield, Richland, maybe Aiken, and several of Kershaw, Lexington, and Edgefield, and Saluda. Okay, so multiple counties represented, and this young man is an outstanding musician, and further indication of the phenomenal job that Ms. Wise has done to really develop our strings program. And so we think about the fact that we've not had strings that long here. Some of the accolades that we have received and just the outstanding performances, she has done a remarkable job. I was in the presence of Tyree at a pastor anniversary a few weeks back. He and I was sitting close by one another, and I was just curious what he was going to say. But I said, "What you gonna do when you get out of high school?" He said, "Study music." That's what I gotta tell you that. I mean, he is definitely a lover of music, because he was playing about 2 or 3 instruments that day at church. Okay, and so we are so proud of the work that he's done. And Pastor Jackson might have recruited this young man to come down and Fairfield. I'm not sure. He's connected to Pastor Jackson, and he came to us, I think, when he was maybe in 10th grade, 11th grade, 11th grade, and it fit right in with the Richmond family. It fits right in with the Richmond family. So we give him a shout out. I'll tell you, I found out about Tyree and his accomplishments from reading the recent edition of Fairfield Post. Okay, and so Ms. Wise didn't call to tell me about it, Dr. Sweeter didn't call, and Tyree didn't tell me about it. But as I read the post when I got back and saw that Tyree was on the front page, and I learned about it. And I'll tell you, I sent Ms. Wise an email after I read this week's edition, telling her how outstanding it is. I mean, and I'll tell you, every week I continue to be impressed with the job that these young people are doing. And it is a meaty, for lack of a better word, publication. There's not a lot of fluff. You know what I mean? These young people are writing some absolutely phenomenal stories. I learned about Native American heritage while reading this paper. I learned about pumpkin spice, while reading. I mean, I'm telling you, I mean, I'm reading the paper, I'm like, wow, man, I didn't know that. I mean, so, I mean, I actually look forward to reading this paper every week. And the Citizen, a student-run publication. We had our former school board member, Ms. McDaniel, who was highlighted. A young man interviewed Ms. McDaniel and talking about her role as a house member. But if you don't get an opportunity to read the post, please do. Because this is an absolutely outstanding publication. And Ms. Chisholm, I had a Beta Club, a academic challenge student who is a part of the post staff. And when she came to see me about something yesterday, I was telling her what a great job that they were doing with the paper. She said, Ms. Chisholm forwarded us your email. She forwarded us your email. I said, well, that's good, because I want y'all to hear from me the outstanding job you're doing. So they are doing a remarkable job. So kudos to Ms. Chisholm and the Fairfield Post staff.
Doc, could I piggyback off that? Just saying that I was talking to some other districts, and they were talking about their streams, and they were saying, man, you know, we have to pay. Their students actually have to pay. Their parents have to pay for these instruments. You know, it's nothing like Fairfield. You know, and so I heard them. I didn't tell them we were doing it free, but I'm listening. In other districts, they actually have to pay for those violins and those big we call them. But here in Fairfield, you know, we don't want our kids to meet. We don't want to miss nothing. Okay. Take advantage of everything. So if they got it in Greenville, if they got it in Fort Mills, or these very affluent districts, we're gonna have it here in Fairfield. I just want to say that.
Thanks for saying that, Mr. Miller. You know, some of you may have heard that Ms. Floride Calvert, who was the former superintendent of Fairfield County, passed recently. If I'm not mistaken, Pastor Jackson, I think it said Ms. Calvert was the first female superintendent in the history of the district. Someone told me she was the first female superintendent. So we lift Ms. Calvert's family up in prayer as she has been called on home. But we thank her for her service and absolutely keep the family in prayer as they go through this program.
I think she was general, I believe. She was general.
Okay. Yeah. Also, Coach Davis, I was recently notified that Coach Davis was named 2A Upper State Coach of the Year. Coach Davis was recognized as the 2A Upper State Coach of the Year, and he is down. I'm not sure where, maybe Myrtle Beach.
Actually, we're going down.
Yeah.
Friday, they got the junior showcase.
Yeah.
Miles Robinson and Miss Swiller's son will be featured along my grandson in the junior showcase, and the game is Saturday. Donovan Watkins will be playing in the game, so we'll be traveling down Friday.
Yeah. So I'm glad you recognize Donovan. So Donovan is
he'll be playing in the game on Saturday, so we gotta stay for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very excited our young people continue to do great things. And we had a good football year this past year. The school that we lost to in the third round of the playoff, Abbeville, went on to win the state championship. Yeah, they won the state championship. And I was told that they had 23 seniors on that team.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be one of the most experienced football teams I've ever seen, and I have to be 23 seniors, my goodness. So we congratulate the football team and Coach Davis did an excellent job. Came up a little short, but nonetheless was a good season.
They beat those of you by 14.
Old side, yeah, absolutely.
14 there.
But as we move out of football season, now we're in the basketball season, all right?
Looking nice.
Yeah, and the boys and girls, varsity will, is currently playing up in
Yeah, they
Blackwood.
playing, like,
I think they had a game this past Friday, in Newberry, was it a home game or was it at Newberry? In Newberry, and so, the boys came up a little short, but I heard they played well, but the girls, did win, and so, we were excited about that. Middle school was already kicked off as well. Middle school, I know, has had a couple of wins. And they had a game last night, not sure how they fared, but we're in the midst of basketball season. So when you get an opportunity, please visit the middle school or the high school, to check out some basketball action. And then finally, let me say this, before I get to the court report. Mr. Davis called me maybe a day or two ago and said that he had a few people inquire about what our plans would be next year relative to bonuses. And some people had heard that because we were committed to doing some salary increases on next year, that would equate to us not being able to do bonuses. And so this dialogue about fund balance was very timely, because as I shared with him, our goal is to absolutely do some salary increases on next year. And as I have said, our priority, not that we won't do others, but our priority will be classified staff. And unfortunately, the General Assembly, when they make decisions about increases, it generally involves teachers and bus drivers.
That's it.
And so from the General Assembly perspective, their increases involve teachers and bus drivers. And so as a result, we have not adequately addressed custodians, instructional aides, clerical staff, I mean, multiple other categories of classified employees. And so our commitment, I've already met with Ms. Robinson and Ms. Howe, and we are working on a proposal to present to you during our budget season. But that is not to say we won't do maintain bonuses, because our intention is that we will do both. Okay, I can't commit that we'll be able to do both forever, but I feel pretty confident we can do both for now. Okay? Now we always said if we ran into a situation where we couldn't, then we have to make some choices. Okay, we said that from the beginning, but we have been blessed to be able to do both. And you know, when you think about what we have done relative to our bonus structure with certified and classified employees, I think we have probably been the most aggressive in the state of South Carolina. I mean, I think we probably have been the most aggressive in the state of South Carolina. And in terms of our first year compensation for a first year teacher, you know, when you add bonus in our current salary, it would shock me if anyone has a higher compensation there. Okay, so kudos to the board for having that commitment. But I can tell you, we are definitely going to present you with a plan to increase particularly classified staff this year. So everybody listening and say, well, you just said classified staff. Well, I'm not telling you it won't be others, but I'm just telling you that's the priority, because we have not addressed many of those categories for several years. Any questions about that before I go to the court? Okay. Moving on to the COVID report. We're still in pretty good shape relative to COVID-19. We saw a bit of an uptick the last week the last week we were here. The week of November 28th through December the 2nd. Last week, November 21st through 25th. No, I'm looking at that wrong. That's November 28th through November, December 2nd. We saw a bit of an uptick. You saw we went from 0 cases, and these are student cases, went from 0 cases to 4 cases. Not enough to be alarmed by, but it is important to recognize that we did see an increase. But I also always remind you that may or may not be accurate, okay? Because these are self-reported numbers. It's not that the DHEC is sending us these numbers, so we count on people really sharing that information with us. We look at sample isolations, we saw a smaller uptick. We went from 0 cases up to 1 case. And so we're still in pretty good shape there as well. I continue to remind people, let's get vaccinated, not only for COVID-19, but also for flu. Every time I watch the news, I see reports about, just more and more flu cases, more and more flu deaths. It is getting serious out there. So, let's continue to get vaccinated. And although it may not prevent you from getting the flu, it'll likely prevent you from having kind of catastrophic kinds of results if you are vaccinated. So I'll tell you, my youngest daughter, she came to me about getting vaccinated. She said, Dad, I need to get vaccinated for the flu. Because several people that I know have caught the flu, and I don't want the flu. And so, that's a smart move on your part, because it's going around. So I shared that I got vaccinated for the flu and COVID-19 at the same time. Last time I went to the doctor. Yeah, so we got to take precautions out there. But we are in pretty good shape relative to COVID-19 and the flu. Any questions at all here? Ms. Green first.
Do you know if the attendance is being affected with the flu as well as virus is going around?
Yeah. We've had a few instances, Ms. Green, where we've had a few classes that ended up having to have significant absences. This is kind of the season where you tend to see more absences as we head into the winter months. So I don't think we're necessarily much higher than we have been historically. Not yet, okay? So right now I think we're pretty close, maybe a tad bit higher than we have been historically, but close to where we've always been this time of year. How's that?
This has been affect us in the school system as much as, well, I don't know, the RSP, the thing is for kids.
Yeah.
I understand now that the elderly who have compromised immune systems are also being affected.
I've not necessarily heard much about RSV in the district. Obviously, it has been very, very difficult to manage for children.
Right.
I think primarily the children who have been really battling with it are kind of younger than we generally see them. I think kind of 2-3 year olds, even though we have some 3-year-olds in the district. But we've not necessarily seen a lot of cases to our knowledge of RSV so far. Okay, but as you said, it is on the rise, and apparently I didn't recognize that it had kind of infiltrated the elderly community.
One that have their compromised.
Yeah.
With their immune system.
Okay. Any other question? We'll go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, you got okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna move on to curriculum and instructions, first reading to 2023-24 proposed academic calendar year.
Good evening. For your approval is the first reading of the 23-24 proposed academic calendar. And based on our discussion with you all on last month, we sent out a version 2 of the calendar. And based on the feedback, we had about 60% of the respondents were in favor of version 2, which shifts the first day of school to August the 2nd. followed by our last day of school for the 23-24 school year will be May 30th. The first day for teachers will be July 26th, and graduation will be on May 31st, 2024, which would be a Friday. So those are the changes based on the feedback that we received from our stakeholders. And we had close to, between the two surveys, we had almost 500 respondents to both surveys. So the calendar was a big topic that was discussed throughout the community because we had a lot of comments, a lot of feedback on the survey, but I was glad to see that we were at least able to come to a consensus with version 2 of the calendar. It seemed that the majority of those respondents were in favor of version number 2. So for your approval tonight, you have version 2. This will be the first reading of the 23-24 proposed academic calendar.
Can I get a motion on the floor to approve the calendar for 2023-24 year?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the 2023-2024
First reading.
first reading of the proposed 2023-2024 calendar, academic calendar for
I said,
school.
Questions?
Could I ask, I do have a question.
Yes, your mic on, Ms. Green.
Oh, I do have a question. Now, when they were offered the 2 calendars, were they given an option of the tradition as well?
They were not.
I got a question too, Mr. Chair. So the traditional calendar is done away with altogether, so no more.
Yes, I can respond to that. So, I'll tell you in my feedback with faculty, staff, students, and parents, I've not gotten the sentiment that there is a desire to move back to traditional. If I did, as I said on multiple occasions, then we don't have a problem of going back. But I didn't get the sense that that's where parents, students, and staff were, was that they wanted to go back. So that's why we had presented traditional calendar.
On the, well, I only got like feedback from the first calendar and it wasn't that great. I haven't gotten any feedback from the second one yet, so I'm kind of like on the fence, excuse me, on the fence with it, so I'm not sure. I need to get some feedback.
Again, that was mine, that they weren't offered for the traditional along with the 2 modified. And I do understand the modified because I do realize that the surrounding counties are going on the modified, not only going towards Columbia, but going up towards Rock Hill are all going modified. So I do understand it is the thing that's going on. Like I said, I just thought that they should have been offered the tradition along with the modified.
And Ms. Green, in response to that, right before our first intercession, I sent out a survey just to get a feel and a vibe of kind of what our teachers specifically, internal survey, I sent out a survey to see how they felt about the intercession that was coming up in October, which was our first intercession. And I will tell you that overwhelmingly, the feedback was that I needed a break.
Yes.
At first, I wasn't in favor of the modified calendar, but now that break is upon us, I really need this break. And so many of the teachers really expressed to me, along with the teacher forum, representatives shared that they didn't realize how bad they really needed this break. And it's hard to go back now that they have this break. Now they see how beneficial it is for them to have an opportunity to have some downtime during the academic year, because of course, while they ended up having their break, to get another break in February. So the teachers are, in my opinion, are overwhelmingly very supportive of the calendar. And that is one of the reasons why we elected not to offer a traditional calendar as an option. Just because the feedback itself was very positive, especially internally. And even with the students, they enjoyed the modified calendar as well.
And I think it's important to note, Ms. Green, you had this conversation before, the calendar committee is made up of Dr. Avery and the teachers of the year from each respective school. And so what our expectation is when they come to those meetings to talk about any recommendation, but particularly the calendar, that they would have had conversation with their staff. And so they are representing really the voice of the people in the school. And so if I'm the teacher of the year and I'm representing Fairfield Central High School, for example, when I come in, if the majority of the people in my school are opposed to the modified balanced calendar, want to go back traditional, that's really the conversation we expect to have in that meeting. Now, when they come in and say, hey, everybody loves it, they don't want to go back, then our assumption is, okay, that's, you are representing the voice of the people who you work for, work with, so, you know, that in addition to the fact that our conversations didn't suggest that people wanted to go back is why we get presented. But with that said, you know, as I tell people all the time, I'm gonna be either way. If I don't,
Yeah.
I'm good either way. If there's a desire by the board to try and assess where people are before we finalize this, we don't have a problem sending that out, and then you can hear specifically where our constituents are and our staff is relative to the county. So we don't have a problem sending that out. I mean, we will end up doing 2 readings on the calendar. And so even if we do first reading, this reading, and then before we do second reading, we'll have numbers relative to where most folks are. And if there's a desire to go back to a traditional calendar, we don't have a problem doing that.
Another question, Dr. Green,
Yeah.
can we make sure that the teachers of the year are really included? Because I'm getting that a lot of them didn't have no opinion one way or the other. They didn't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the school. I'm just saying that that's what I was getting from other schools that they didn't really have an input on the calendar or didn't have a discussion with the teacher of the year. But I'm looking at the last week. I'm just trying to figure out how productive that week would be. You out Memorial Day, you got one school day, and then you got early dismissal the last 2 days. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't have an answer, but I'm saying I just got a lot of, and I actually wanted to support it the last time anyway, just to see. But then I got a lot of people saying, you know, they're tired. They didn't really, you know, have a summer break or whatever, because some of them taught summer school or whatever. But I was just looking at that last week, because you really only had one full day in that last week of school.
You know, and I'm not necessarily looking at it, but what I say is, you know, anytime we make adjustments, it's like, you know, giving and taking, you know, and so, you know, part of what we did was there were some people who wanted to start a little later. So we had to make some adjustments to the calendar to try and accommodate that. Because you still have to get in the number of days that you have to get in. I mean, so you still got to get in the, you know, 180 days for the students, 190 days for staff. And then there's other priorities in the calendar. So, you know, we had a full week for Thanksgiving. Okay, I can tell you, right across the line in Richmond too, I think they had 3 days of Thanksgiving. I mean, so, you know, there are always things that we can adjust. And so when people say, you know, can we make adjustments? We absolutely can. But there's something that you got to give up when you make the adjustment. So we could do some things differently, but very often people say, well, if you say, well, we won't do a full Thanksgiving. No, I don't want that. I mean, I want a full Thanksgiving. I mean, you know what I mean? People want, you know, they gotta want vacation even too. Like, you know, you gotta make some sacrifices. And that's part of what they do when they get in the calendar committee, because very often when you start making changes, even the changes that they made, because one thing that happened even in calendar 2 was they went from 5 days on one intersection to 4 days on one intersection. So one of the intercessions, students are gonna get 5 days. Teachers are only gonna get 4 days. Okay? And so I read some of the comments where some of the staff said, well, I'm not happy about only getting 4 days. I want to be able to get my full 5 days. And once again, Pastor Jason, okay, once before we gotta, you know, sooner or later, we gotta make some sacrifices somewhere. Okay, and so that's where most people were. You know, probably any calendar that you develop, there'll be some people who think, hey, that's good, and there'll be some people who say, I would want to do it another way. But ultimately, you have to settle on something that most people think is acceptable and beneficial. Okay, but we'll send something out just to assess whether there is a desire to go back to a traditional calendar, and we'll do that before the next week.
Questions? Any more? Okay, well, all in favor of the first read on the academic calendar for 2023-24, please raise your right hand. All opposed? So that's 6, 7, 0.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Operation and Finance.
Good evening. In the board report, you have the finance report for the month of November, fiscal board review. There's nothing out of the ordinary about this report. Everything's pretty straightforward. So if you have any questions or comments.
One of the things that I just wanted to share with you and Dr. Green, that I got some calls from the employees. They were very happy. That y'all put that bonus in here for them before Thanksgiving. So they were very grateful that I'm just going to tell them that.
Again, Mr. Ralph, thank you for the outstanding job.
Any more questions? Anybody got any questions? Thank you, Dr. Rice. All right. Ms. Sullivan, Human Resources.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This evening, under Human Resources, item 1, the superintendent recommends the board approve certified professional educators for the 2022-23 academic year. This is presented in Exhibit 1.
Can we get a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I make a motion, we accept the superintendent recommendation to approve certified professional educators for the 22-23 academic year, Exhibit 1.
Second such motion.
Motion made by Ms. Harris, second by Dr. Harris, approved academic year for, what year was that, 20? That's 2022, 23, 24, 23 academic year. All in favor, show by raise of right hand. That would be 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. At this time, we'll have the board chair report. I just, I think that we had some parades that some of our board members attended, and it was very good. The Winsboro Parade, Ridgeway Parade, you know, I was able to make it to one of the middle school concert, or they did a great job. The dance team, they did an outstanding job, you know. And so, you know, it's kudos to our children. We got some of the most talented students in this, not only in the state, but in this nation right here in Fairfield County. And so yeah, that's right. Poor program praises on home. I say that, I mean that. And any more, anybody got anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Dr. Grant should have asked you on the board report. The makeup of the 9 weeks exam now, the teachers that they don't do that now, or who makes the exams? I got so many calls today about these exams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think teachers participate in the exam along with CNI. Not even kind of talking about who all participates in that process.
Depending upon the course, we have a contractor that we utilize to create the tests. And then there are also, especially at the high school, there are also some teacher-created examinations as well.
Okay, well, I got a lot of calls today.
So what is that? What's the question was asked?
A lot of kids didn't do well on the 9 weeks exam. I got them on my way here, so I'm sure you probably gonna get some tomorrow, but.
And I'm glad, yeah. So, you know, we had this conversation when I first came here about 9-week exams. And the whole purpose of the 9-week exam is to measure where we stand relative to mastery of standards. And the reason we drop the lowest test score in every 9 weeks is so 9-week exams particularly can't adversely affect someone. So if you say, I didn't do well on a 9-week exam, we already dropped the lowest test score, so that could be the test score that you drop. But it's important to note that the 9 weeks exam is supposed to be aligned to the standards. And that determines how you're going to be able to perform on state assessment. So if you were taking an Algebra 1 intercourse assessment, or US history intercourse assessment, or you in, you know, 3rd grade, these are aligned to the standards to give us a prediction, or rather you are prepared for the state assessment. And simply to be prepared for a teacher-made assessment doesn't necessarily equate to being prepared for a state assessment. So that's why it's important that we give these assessments so we can determine whether you are being prepared to succeed there. But it's important to know that someone questions you, you get to drop the lowest test score.
Yeah, I was told that by some teachers.
Yeah, so if you drop the lowest test score, it's not going to adversely affect you anyway. But I'll say this. If you are doing well on the 9-week assessment, then you might not be ready by the time you get state assessment. Okay, that's probably what that's saying is, well, I'm not doing well on the 9-week assessment. When you get past SC ready in a course test, the state assessment, because we have pretty good confidence in the development of those 9-week assessments that they are relatively well aligned to the state assessment. There's something to be a little concerned about.
Another thing, I mean, we had already talked about the young men that will be at Myrtle Beach this weekend. I think that's just a wonderful thing. And I'll be in attendance down there. Look forward to the game. Hope it don't be cold because I don't like cold. And also on Wednesday, they will have a holiday performance at the high school. I guess with the chorus and dance and all of the band together at 6 o'clock on Wednesday. And they are also doing an awesome job. And I keep forgetting the band teacher's name, but I talked to them in Ridgeway. I'm loving it. Oh my God, I love it. They are doing a great job. He's doing an awesome job with that band. I know the young man that helps him. He went to Fairfield. And Sunday, feeding Fairfield, we will be at the middle school 12 to 2. It's a drive-through, so anybody you know may want a meal, nice meal, please bring, or you can come pick it up 12 to 2. And I just I noticed they got one more week in school. Wish everybody a safe winter break. The flu is on the rise. COVID is still on the rise. So I just hope everybody be safe and be cautious of a lot of events. Cause trust me, I got plenty of them to go to, but I'm gonna be very safe. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Chairman Miller, first of all, I'd like to thank the board for entrusting in me to be the delegate for the last week conference that we had. I learned a lot. We talked about the legislative resolutions which we voted on. Some of the wording was changed in some of it. We also talked about the bylaws that we're starting for 2023 this year. And another thing that we voted on we actually voted on the Region 13 candidate, which was Scott Childers, and he won his Region C. Miss Gail Burgess Hughes. Gail Hughes talked about the I'm trying to say. Gail Hughes talked about the resolutions, and Mrs. Cheryl Burrows talked about the nominating committee. We also talked about and voted on we was talking about the schools, like the charter school, like Grady's school. They'll still be able to participate in this season, but they're looking at a way that they can participate in the state championships on a different level, because a lot of people felt it was unfair for them to be able to play our students when their rules are totally different from ours. Charter school, yes, sir. And if I like to send a shout out to the elite ladies, which my daughter is interested in coming back to dance again for them. I tell Ms. Brown she's doing a great job. This past Saturday was in the Columbia Parade for the very first time. On Saturday, I also performed in Charlotte, North Carolina, one of 7 teams, and he brought home, because I took him, 3rd place in the lightning round, 3rd place in the HBCU parades, 2nd place in the HBCU field show, and 1st place in the traditional stands for juniors. They also competed on November 12th, and they placed 1st place in the HBCU stands, 2nd place in the HBCU field show, 1st place in 32 counts, and 2nd place in the HBC parade. I just like to tell Ms. Brown, congratulations, you're doing a great job with these young ladies, and my daughter look forward to dancing with you again soon, which you seen, she came out there with y'all in the parade, and when I come to get her, I have to sign her out, so I thank you for taking care of our children.
Yes, so Chair. I would like to mention that tomorrow evening, they're having the amazing shake over at the middle school. And I think that what they're working on are the soft skills that so many of our children need to work on. Soft skills or eye contact, a nice firm handshake, personal charisma, the ability to have a conversation with a basic person anywhere, anytime. But they asked me to be a part of it. I'm really excited about it. But it's going to be tomorrow evening. If you get an opportunity, it starts, well, we're supposed to be judges. We're supposed to be at about 4:30. I believe the program starts at 5. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually forgot about it, so thank you. But I'll be at work. So.
I'll be there.
Any more? I would just like to, I'm gonna piggyback off that, Mr. Davis, with the elite ladies, not only did they were in the Lynchburg parade also.
Yes.
Not only that, they were in the Ridgeway parade also. So they got about, I don't know, they must be like 5, they got a lot of ladies everywhere. But, shout out to the elite ladies of Brown, continue to do a great job. And, some of these young ladies wouldn't get a chance to perform, it wasn't for the elite ladies. So they're very encouraged and keep up the good work. Anybody else got anything else?
Well, Chairman, before we close, I'd like to make one more statement. I told Dr. Green about a young lady that had just got elected in Charleston. And first thing she said, like you said, she was very impressed with what we're doing up here for us with the teachers village. They're trying to see how they can retain teachers. And I talked about the bonuses that we had to offer, the housing, which she's very interested in. Mr. Robinson, they said you're doing a great job. keep doing what you're doing. We talked about, our fund balance, and they couldn't believe the budget that we have for it. So like I said, with the, getting to meet people in the legislators conference or whatever, it was a great experience for me. And I really appreciate all y'all again for having, support and encouraging me for that conference. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else? Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, motion to adjourn. Ms. Evans is second, Ms. Green, all in favor, show by raising the right hand. And we say, meeting is over.
Yeah, I forgot about the basic shake, like I see it later.